was a great wrestler, but not great on the level of Vern.
Yeah.
Wasn't a star on Vern's level.
Sure.
And a lot of these guys, they knew how to book themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They knew how to base their business around themselves. And when they got long in the tooth, they couldn't trust anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they knew how to book themselves, but they didn't know how to book another guy.
Yeah.
That happened in a lot of territories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other ones that a lot of my listeners have become a little bit more used to is the Texas, of course, where the Von Erichs were, the WCCW, which was, I mean, that was, during the 70s, you watch some of that stuff now, and it's amazing to me. Like, it doesn't matter what territory it is, to be honest with you, especially Stampede at the time. But for me, what's incredible is the amount of stuff that I see happening today that's almost been recycled. Like, the old has become the new again.
Right.
And I think a lot of my sort of fans that have maybe just watched wrestling for the last 10 years have been super shocked to see that these things had been going on way ahead of, a long time ago. But a lot of that stuff is still being used. But it's amazing to me, all these different territories, the amount of innovation that was going on back then and creativity was just through the roof. So although people say, maybe they had the wrong hat on, maybe they were thinking of it more of a sport still, I kind of disagree with that, because I do think that, even if you look at WCCW, they had some great characters in there that were very out of the box, shall we say, at times. So I kind of disagree with that. And you wonder really if WWF hadn't have become what it, eventually eating up everything, where all this would have gone. And like you say, though, I think that TV had a major part to play in going forward, which, ultimately we now just have sort of one. I mean, they didn't just take over the United States in the end; it was the world, pretty much, of what they want to do. And now, although I would say it's a wrestling promotion, it's more than that now. It's just sort of a lot of things rolled into one. And, the fact that you don't really even call them wrestlers, they have to be called superstars, that sort of thing. It's a very odd, an odd concept, If it wasn't for wrestling, maybe in that title somewhere, I'm sure it would be called something different.
Well, there was a time that Vince wanted to get away from the word wrestling.
Yeah, it's odd. It's very odd. And do you think Vince McMahon, the sort of legacy that he'll leave behind, obviously he's going to go down as a phenomenon, I'm sure, regardless, because he certainly had the vision at one point, and you can't argue the success that he certainly had, throwing everything at it in those early days. But do you think the legacy will stand the test of time for him and his rule over it? Will it always be remembered, and how he'll leave it, what sort of shape that will be left in going forward, more importantly?
I think that when the day comes that Vince McMahon is absent from the industry, everything will start to move backwards, towards a more amped up version of what it used to be. Because right now, one company really dominates the landscape. By a wide margin. But we're starting to see some cracks in that foundation. I mean, there's a lot of the world has gotten smaller media-wise. There are other products out there.
Sure.
Vince isn't going to. Did you happen to watch? I have a point to make here. I'm not just changing the subject. Did you happen to see the Triple H 25th anniversary?
I did. Yes. Yes.
Did you look at Vince closely?
I've watched that video about twice, but he didn't. I mean, I think a lot of people suspect it was a character. I'm not of that. I feel like Vince is going, maybe there's some health issues. What do you think?
I think he might not be well. I think he might not be well. That's just I hope that's not the case. I don't wish anything bad on Vince McMahon or the McMahon family or WWE or anyone else for that. But, Vince is in his 70s. I mean, man, I'm 63. Gee whiz. There's days I had a little trouble getting out of bed,
Sure. Yeah.
So he's got a far a far greater work ethic than I do. Not that I don't work hard, because I do, but he's a grinder, man. He's a grinder of the highest order, and I don't care who you are. Eventually, you wear down.
Mm. Are you surprised? I mean, I'm a little bit surprised that he never got to a stage, maybe 10 years ago or whatever, where he thought, I know it would be ridiculous to say he's going to give it all up, because he ain't ever going to do that. This is his baby. I don't think he has holidays and things of that nature, because he's like, why would I want to take a break from something I love? And that's how he is. He's so into this stuff. But do you think that maybe there should have come a time where he could have sold up a little bit, or that was going to come? I mean, certainly people hint at that a lot, and that he's going to be more forthcoming with releasing stuff. And there's rumours. There's always been rumours of sort of people sniffing around WWE, and I can see why, because it does serve some value, especially in the PG realm. You think of things like networks coming along. Although WWE's ratings might not be great, there's still money to be made there. I'm pretty sure of that with their TV. Do you think that he ever got close, or would get close to ever selling or giving some of that up, or do you think that's just not in his makeup?
I think that if he's ever gotten close, it's now.
Right.
The second failure of the XFL is one factor.
That's a massive.
This whole coronavirus situation is another thing. A curveball that no one could have expected. No one could have seen coming. It's a hard thing.
Yeah.
I think no one's forever.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's certainly, would be interesting what something else would do with it. I have no idea, but I'm sure they'd have a certain amount of people involved still.
If I were Disney, or if I were ESPN, the WWE without Vince McMahon would not have a lot of value.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I think it's got to have that driving force. It's almost like I look at UFC with Dana White. That's kind of why they've kept him on. Even though there was that huge buyout, they still want Dana White as the front man to do all their stuff.
And who knows if Vince McMahon is going to be able to work for somebody else?
Yeah, I doubt
That's a big unknown too. I have my doubts about that as well.
Yeah, I don't know. Now I've got to ask you before we get to the end of this podcast, what is your kind of stuff? I mean, what sort of wrestling does Sheldon Goldberg enjoy watching? Do you enjoy watching the current stuff? I mean, obviously not as it is now, that's for sure. But where do you lie? Do you go back on a lot of older stuff? Like, what is your sort of generation where you get the most great feelings from, and is it from an older time when you was growing up still, or?
Yeah, I watch a lot of older stuff, but I do watch the current product, at least some of it. I don't watch all of it. Nobody has the time, but I have been watching AEW on a regular basis. I'm kind of intrigued by what they're doing and what they're trying to do. It's interesting. I think that there's a lot of lessons to be learned from the past that can be applied today. But then again, it's a different world, and there's nothing you can do about that. Progress can't be stopped. So I try to apply the lessons of the past to the present day. That isn't always possible, but I still think that in order to be a good promoter, in order to be forward thinking, you've got to have a good command of history. Yeah,
absolutely. And with that, what you're just saying there, like with the promoter stuff, like obviously you've been a promoter for a long time now. I'm sure you've had lots of challenges. When in your time, like from 2000, did you kind of have that moment where you felt like, I've got it, I know how to do this now, and there's no, there's no hiccups going to come in the way as such, because
I've never had that moment. I've never had that moment. I was always something. If I had Vince McMahon's the interest on Vince McMahon's checkbook, maybe I'd feel a little bit differently about it.
Yeah.
There's always something to be learned. There's always a new challenger out there. When I started, there was a company that was sort of a rival to us called Chaotic Wrestling.
Right.
And they were kind of, I won't say a thorn in our side, but there was some friction there. I wouldn't say that we were competitors. I would say a descriptive word was we were rivals.
Yeah.
There was a time when we were really eating their lunch, and there was a time when they were trying to stick it to us in a big way. I think now they're just doing what they do and they're trying to survive. And me, I'm sort of, I've got more years in the rearview mirror than I have in the windshield. Right. So I'm just trying to figure out what the best course is to keep NECW as something past my involvement in it. So,
I wanted to ask that, like, if you do have any advice for promoters, because I have a lot of promoters on the podcast. I know a lot of them in the UK that listen to this podcast that maybe, I mean, they're all at different stages, but a lot of them starting out. What if you could give one piece of, I'm sure there's lots, as you say, and your answer there is absolutely no different to any other promoter I've asked that question to. They are literally, anything can happen at any time, and you've just got to be really super adaptive and calm.
Exactly. You can't, a lot of things you can't predict.
Yeah, but is there one bit of advice that you could give, or that there's something that always sticks in your mind over time?
Learn how to be a good collaborator, because promoting wrestling effectively is collaborating. As the promoter, nobody buys tickets to see me. You have to be able to, collaborate with people in order to get a good product out in the ring. And that's what people pay money to see. Do the best show you can, make the most of what you have. Don't worry about what you don't have, because you don't have it. So don't worry about it. Just do the best you can with what you have. Think about the fan experience. Put yourself in the shoes of the fan. How do you want that person to view what you do? How do you want that person, when they come to your event, to leave that event? Yeah. Like, I'll give you one little example. We used to sell programs that I would create and write and lay out and design and so forth. I would write every word of the program, design the whole thing, put it out there. And we used to sell them for $1 or $2, whatever. And in around 2011, I stopped doing that. I didn't stop doing the program. I stopped charging money for it. I made sure that everybody had one, and it was in color. It wasn't a lot of pages. It was only 4 pages, but it was color. And everybody who came in got to take it home. Right. I wanted everyone who came to the show to take something away with them from that show. That they didn't have to pay. It was part of the experience.
It's almost like having something tangible to take with you, and then just, your memories. Yeah.
It sounds simple, but it works.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
Just put on the best show that you can. Be fan friendly. I'm not talking about the product itself. I'm not talking about having Disney characters come out. I'm talking about you, the promoter. Be fan friendly. I would, at every show, at the end of the night, I would always try to be out front, thanking people for coming, shaking their hand. When they would come in, I'd tear tickets at the door just so I could greet the people. Well, hey, thanks for coming tonight, blah, blah. Very important. It sounds silly. It sounds stupid. But it means something to people. I think many times people would come because they knew they were coming to an event put on by people who appreciated them coming to it and thanked them for coming to it.
Sure.
Thank you are 2 powerful words when said together. Yeah. It sounds silly and it sounds kind of trivial, but it isn't.
And it costs nothing.
It costs nothing. That's right.
Something to do. No, there's something to be said for that whole experience part of it, and I think, if you send someone away in that mindset, they're going to talk about it with other people, but they're also going to, next time that rolls around again, that image in their head, that perception they have of where they've been before, they're going to want to go back there and they're going to want to feel that again.
Exactly.
And it's, you're perfectly right there. And I think that's a very good point about being front and center at the start of the shows and towards the end as well. And that kind of